Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. Today, time to wake up the other guy.
There.
Morning.
Yeah, I never went to bed.
Oh,
I dozed off a second ago.
yeah,
I'm
makes
back.
sense.
Let me get my camera going.
I got an idea.
What's your idea?
I don't know how hard it is though, but to do. How hard is it just to clip our intros? Like the intro's only like a minute tops, right? You just clip the intros and put them on a short. I'm talking about like the headlines, the stories we read, like the top 3 stories, and then cut it off there, and then send that as a short, right? Like clip it right away and just publish it. I don't know if that's easy to do or not. Because you can do it in a short, that way you don't have to worry about a lot of editing. So like less than a minute, really.
Well, I guess I'm ready. That part anyways. Like, yeah, I already edited that part anyways. It's really, I don't have to explain it to you. Very easy.
All right. I just thought it would. It's just a thought. All right, you guys about ready?
Details of how to do it. It's so simple. It's like dropping a file into a folder.
I thought it was, but I didn't want to make it sound simple. All right. Are you both ready?
Yeah, sure.
That's
You're
awful.
ready, I'm ready.
Noise. Okay, I guess I'm ready then.
Right. Hey, on Before Coffee. Are these new headlines? Okay, here we go. I was like, wait, these aren't new headlines.
Okay.
Ryanair records third busiest month in April as demand for flights soar.
Okay, China's Mars rover finds signs of recent water in sand dunes.
3 sections of a Roman wall in the city of London has been given protected status.
And does America realize that Sudan is too big to fail?
In Serbia, pupil arrested after 1 killed and 5 wounded in a Belgrade school shooting. We've now spread it to Serbia.
And in a musty old hall in Detroit, they prayed in the Maritime Sailors Cathedral. The church bell chimed till it rang 30 times. 1 for each man on the Edmund Fitzgerald and 1 for Gordon Lightfoot, who has died at the age of 84. Today, on the 3rd of May, edition 2023 of Before Coffee. No, it's 3 de Mayo.
Oh, right. For my first news story, we're going to be talking about how, if you, last week maybe, I think, if you remember, talking about how Heathrow Airport doesn't get enough flights and they're losing money. But that's not the same thing for the actual flights companies. Ryanair has recorded its third busiest month for traffic, having flown 16 million passengers in April, and as it's continued to benefit from pent-up demand for air travel. A budget airline said the figure marked a 13% increase in passenger numbers compared with the same month a year earlier, when it carried just over 14 million people as customers sought to jet off on spring getaways, including during the Easter holiday. The Irish carrier's planes were also fairly full last month, with its average proportion of empty seats per flight falling to 6%, a level not seen since last October. Its planes usually have such low proportion of empty seats only during school summer holiday periods. Ryanair, Europe's largest airline by passenger numbers, probably because they make so many seats, right? If you can fit more and more people in a plane, of course your passenger numbers will increase. Instead of having a comfortable place to sit.
Right.
We can only fit 100 in this plane instead of 120. So of course they're going to have more passenger numbers. But, has carried more passengers in a month only twice before, in July and August last year, which I'm expecting, if it's rising this month already, probably in the same months this year, it'll also have a rise in summer, late summer, holiday travel. when it flew 16.8 million and 16.9 million passengers during the peak summer getaway season. The airline reported that in January there has been a robust demand for Easter and summer flights this year, partly because of the return of Asian and American travelers visiting Europe to benefit from the strength of the US dollar. Ryanair said it had canceled its 2020 flight, or had canceled 220 flights over the most recent bank holiday weekend, spanning the end of April and the start of May, because of strikes by French air traffic control that this had affected more than 40,000 passengers. The airline said it had been informed by French authorities that would need to cancel at least 200 flights, most of which had been flown over France. Ryanair's chief executive, Michael O'Leary, last week criticized the strikes, calling them completely unacceptable. Exactly the point. The more angry you get, the more the strike works. Wow, you figured out how strikes work! O'Leary apologized to the passengers affected by the industrial action and called on the European Commission to take action to protect overflights when a plane needs to fly across French airspace to reach a destination, saying that should not be affected by strikes in France. Except that it is, because without an air traffic control tower, you will crash into another plane. Ryanair canceled 650 flights in April, affecting 118,000 passengers as a result of strikes by French air traffic controllers. Well, that's what happens when, they increase the pension age. This is what happens. I really don't want to hear any CEO's opinion on workers' strikes. It's so annoying. As a CEO, this affects me greatly. That's the point. The CEO, you're supposed to be affected by strikes, whether it has anything to do with yours or not. Anyways, on to your next story.
All you fascists bound to lose. So you just hold tight. All right, man. In science news, we're starting off with science news. This is through the AP, Marcia Dunn's. Water may be more widespread on recent on Mars than previously thought, based on observations of Martian sand dunes by China's rover. The finding highlights new, potentially fertile areas in the warmer regions of Mars where conditions might be suitable for life to exist, although more studies needed. Friday's news comes days after mission leaders acknowledged that Zhurong rover has yet to wake up since going into hibernation for the Martian winter nearly a year ago. Its solar panels are likely covered with dust, choking off its power and source and possibly preventing the rover from operating again, said Zhang Rog, the mission's chief designer. Before Zhurong fell silent, observed salt-rich dunes with cracks and crusts, which researchers said were likely mixed with melting morning frost or snow as recently as a few 100,000 years ago. Their estimated date range for when the cracks and other dunes features formed on Mars Utopia Planitia, a vast plain in the northern hemisphere, sometime after 1.4 to 400,000 years ago, or even younger, just a blink of an eye in geologic time. I can't say geologic. Conditions during that period were similar up to now on Mars, with rivers and lakes dried up and no longer flowing as they did billions of years earlier. Studying the structure and chemical makeup of these dunes can provide insights into the possibility of water activity during this period, the Beijing-based team wrote in a study published in Science Advances. We think it could be a small amount with no more than a film of water on the surface. Co-author Zhang Huang Quinn of the Institute of Geology and Geophysics said in the email, the rover did not detect any water in the form of frost or ice, but Quinn said the computer simulations and observations by other spacecraft in Mars indicate that even nowadays, at certain times of year, conditions could be suitable for water to appear. What's notable about the study is how young the dunes are, said planetary scientist Friedrich Schmidt at the University of Paris-Saclay, who is not part of the study. This is clearly a new piece of science for this region. Small pockets of water from thawing frost and snow mixed with salt likely resulted in small cracks, hard crusty surfaces, loose particles, and other dune features like depressions and ridges, the Chinese scientists said. They ruled out as wind as a cause, as well as frost made of carbon dioxide, which makes up the bulk of Mars' atmosphere. Martian frost has been observed since NASA's 1970s Vikings mission, but these light dustings of morning frost were thought to occur in certain locations under specific conditions. The rover has not provided evidence that there may be wider distribution of the process on Mars than previously identified, said Trinity College Dublin Mary Bork, an expert on Mars geology. This writer interviewed everybody on the planet, apparently. However, small this watery niche, it could be important for identifying habitable environments, she added. Launched in 2020, the six-wheeled Zhurong, named after a fire god in Chinese mythology, arrived in Mars in 2021 and spent a year roaming around before going into hibernation last May. The rover operated longer than intended, traveling more than a mile. That's it. That's my story. No life on Mars as of yet, but hey, there's some kind of water.
There's something's happening. We're not sure what, because it's so far away, and it takes
no Martian cocktails just yet.
Takes a long time for it to travel here. Okay.
Yeah. Well.
All right.
Next up.
In other discovery news, 3 sections of Roman wall in the city of London given protected status. Remains of a once vast riverside structure granted legal protection against unauthorized change. Riverside Wall was once a vast stone structure that formed part of the defense of Roman London, built in the 3rd century AD along the Thames. It connected the city's landward fortifications, large sections of which still exist. Much of it has been lost in the intervening 1700 years, and the wall was all but forgotten, although one section survived around the Tower of London during the excavations by MOLA, Museum of London Archaeology, between 2006 and 2016. However, 3 substantial new stretches were discovered. They had now been added to the National Heritage List for England, which means they have been designated as nationally important sites and given protection from future developments. Duncan Wilson, the chief executive of Historic England, said, "Even in a really dense city like London, built up over 2,000 years, there are still mysteries to be filled right beneath our feet." Jane Saddle, the Historic England's principal inspector of ancient monuments for London, agreed that their riverside wall was slightly eccentric. While its original position is known, running between what is now Blackfriars Station and the Tower, it was built at a time when the city relied on its busy Thameside wharfs. By sticking an enormous great wall on the waterfront, you interfere with the free and easy access between boats, she said. So the riverside wall is slightly strange because it causes the problem with trade. But we still don't know how it worked. We don't know whether there are gateways in the riverside wall. We don't know how people got through it. While partly defensive, she says, it may have been partly built as a legacy project by an ambitious discoverer wanting to leave his mark on the city. In parts, the wall incorporates reused stone that has previously been Roman monuments, shedding more light on architecture and building techniques from that period. The new protection also covers several exceptionally preserved wooden wharfs and quay structures from both the Roman and medieval periods. At one point, at one site, beside what is now Upper Thames Street near London Bridge, a 20-meter stretch of stone wall was found, some of it 1.4 meters high,
It's Thames, babe.
Alongside a succession of timber Roman quays used for loading and unloading cargo from the boats. 2 further sections of the wall, measuring 45 and 35 meters, were found a little east, one of which reused a wooden cornice or pediment from the building, thought to be unique in Britain. All 3 structures of wall have been left in situ. It literally just says situ, S-I-T.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. And now under modern buildings, though not a risk now, they could be 40 or 50 years given the frequent redevelopment sites at Sudan. The projection that we have given now is for the future, to identify that the riverside wall is nationally important and something that needs to be protected. Riverside wall. Oh, it goes pretty deep. That's true. By the South Wark in London. You want to go look at a excavation and you happen to be in London.
Where is it near? Is it near Richmond?
It was near the London Bridge.
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah, so
well, I walked the London
people
Thames.
digging in a hole and you'll find a bunch of archaeological sites from Roman/medieval period of England.
We went to the Thames out there in Richmond, remember? We stopped in Richmond for a while.
I've been there
I
many
walked down
times.
to
I've
the
been to
river.
London more than you, so.
Oh, aren't we fancy? Okay.
Well, I live in Europe, so it's not really fancy. Like going down to Baltimore or something.
Yeah, and you've also been to France, and you have seen the Queen's, underpants. No,
Yeah.
you haven't seen that. Is it my turn, or
Yeah,
we're
your story.
excavating rivers? That's cool. In opinion, this is from the New York Times opinion columnist Lydia Polgrains. Does America realize that Sudan is too big to fail? The U.S. isn't in the center of the world. Lydia Polgrains thinks beyond borders. Get her column as soon as it publishes. It says here. I'm not reading that. Okay. Two heavily armed guards led by sworn enemies square off in a dense metropolitan area that is a home to about as many people as New York City. Hundreds of civilians have died and thousands have been wounded. True toll may be much higher. People are pinned down in their homes and street-to-street fighting and aerial bombardment. They're running out of food and water. Hospitals are running out of supplies. International humanitarian workers have packed up their white sport utility vehicles and hightailed it to safety. Western and regional diplomats have boarded helicopters, buses, and planes to get out. The 45 million people of Sudan have all been abandoned in the crossfire to fight to the death between two men who want to rule them. General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, the head of the country's army, and his one-time deputy, Lieutenant General Mohammed Hamdan, the leader of the brutal paramilitary force central to the ethnic cleansing in Darfur. The fighting has been going on for more than 2 weeks. There is no end in sight. Like many people who have spent time in Sudan, I have been watching this crisis unfold with horror and dismay, trying to understand how a disaster of this scale of such a strategically significant part of the world could have happened. Where was the high-level maneuvering that might have found a path to peace and democratic self-rule for the long-suffering Sudanese people? As I learned more about what happened in Sudan, my ears were practically singed by the scathing critiques of the bungled diplomacy from current and former diplomats in the region. Strikingly, some of the diplomats have spoken up public about the failure to head off this crisis or even reach a doable ceasefire to allow more people to escape the battle zone or even get basic supplies. We've been watching a train wreck gather speed, Alex Rondos, a former European Union envoy to Horn of Africa, told me. Why did we get something as catastrophic as this? 4 years ago, after decades of military rule, an astonishing protest movement rolled onto the streets and toppled Sudan's longtime dictator Omar Hassan al-Bashir. That moment brought hopes that Sudan, with its belated Arab Spring-style uprising, could finally turn the page toward democracy. But the process was booby-trapped from the beginning. The two military leaders that helped remove al-Bashir from office and made noises about civilian power, even agreeing to create a temporary transitional civilian government under the authority. It quickly became clear that they had no serious intention of giving up power. In October 2021, they staged a coup. Having vanquished civilian rule, the two men then turned on each other, and the people of Sudan are caught in the middle. The diplomatic efforts in the region for the months leading up to the current crisis were handled by a jumble of mid-level diplomats from an alphabet soup of regional and international bodies, and regional leaders are nowhere to be seen. The Sudan scholar Alex DeWall called it a low-level diplomatic traffic jam in a recent essay. No one wanted what was now transpired, but no one was coordinating the signaling to prevent it from happening. One regional diplomat and Sudanese analysts and officials I spoke to kept asking was, where is the United States? In an increasingly multipolar world, the United States may lack the leverage and stature it once had to bend events to its will. That may be not such a bad thing. Pax Americana often came at a price to sovereignty and self-determination, especially for the people of the global South. But that does not make the United States any less indispensable as a force for peace, stability, and democracy at this time. In the past, the United States has played an essential role in bringing together seemingly inconceivable antagonists and their regional proxies to find a path to speed in Sudan. On Monday, the glaring lack of high-level diplomacy prompted a bipartisan statement from the House Foreign Affairs Committee urging the Biden administration and the United Nations to appoint senior envoys saying direct, sustained, high-level leadership from the United States, United Nations is necessary to stop the fighting from dragging the country into a full-blown civil war and state collapse. It may be tempting to throw up our hands and say peaceful transition to civilian rule in Sudan was an impossible mission. Sudan has been at war with itself for almost 40 of its 67 years as an independent nation. And yet, there is ample evidence that high-level diplomacy by a range of international and regional actors was effective in the past, making the vacuum now all the more appalling. Sudan's future once preoccupied Republican and Democratic presidential administrations alike. Ending the civil war between northern and southern Sudan was such an important priority for the administration of George W. Bush that he dispatched a friend and ally, former Senator John Danforth, as an envoy. The Obama administration sent high-level envoys to rally regional powers and cajole combatants when the peace agreement between North and South seemed headed off the rails. Important regional figures stepped up. Former presidents of South Africa and Nigeria were deeply involved. Along with the then Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Meles Zenawi, in keeping with the agreement, track as South Sudan moved towards a referendum that would split the country. By contrast, the current crisis has largely involved mid-level technocrats. Volker Perthes, the top UN official in Sudan, admitted in an interview with Sky News this week that despite the rising tensions between the generals, of course, we did not see it coming. That kind of does it for the story. There's a lot more to read, but I can't stretch it out for the next 10 minutes. But Sudan needs somebody to come, probably the United States, to come in and say, okay, there's got to be a diplomatic solution. You guys shooting and killing each other is not going to solve anything. So we don't want to take the country over, but we sure as hell don't want it to become a what do you call it? A Wild Wild West type place.
Why?
Because nobody will be able to get food or eat or have electricity, or there'll just be constant civil war. Not a good place to live. That's why.
I mean, that's all great and stuff, but I don't believe governments care about people's well-being when they want to stop wars. I think they want something from Sudan that Sudan has, and they can't get it because Sudan is in a civil war. That's what I think, but I don't know what that is. So. Well, you would be saying that, but we did do Vietnam. Vietnam had nothing we wanted. They had no. Yeah, they did. They had resources. Democracy. They had no resources. All they were was they were in the domino effect of communism. That's all they were. So this could be the domino effect of completely losing Africa for the next 2 generations to nothing but civil war. That's all. Well, it's just one.
We need democracies in as many places as possible.
But that's a reason. So.
It is a reason. It's a better reason
than.
We didn't do anything to help Vietnam. We just basically killed a lot of people.
All right. In my news, we're going to be talking about a very short story, fresh off the press here. Literally 23 minutes ago it happened.
Ooh.
Not the shooting, but the arrest of the shooter. People arrested after 9 killed in Belgrade school shooting. A boy, only 14 years old, opened fire in a classroom and then killed 8 pupils and a security guard, the Serbian Interior Minister says. Ilan Milosevic, the father of one of the pupils at Vladislav Ribnikar Elementary School, said his daughter was in class where the gun was fired. He managed to escape. The boy first shot the teacher, and then he started shooting randomly, he told the broadcaster N1. Milan, mayor of the central Varkar district where the school is located, said doctors were fighting to save the teacher's life. The Interior Ministry statement said 8 children and a security guard had been killed and 6 children had been hospitalized along with the teacher. Police said a 7th grade student had been arrested. I saw the security guard lying under the table. I saw 2 girls with blood on their shirts, they say. He, the shooter, was quiet and a good pupil, added Milosevic, who had rushed to the school after the shooting. Officers in helmets and bulletproof vests cordoned off the area around the school. I saw kids running out from the school screaming. Parents came. They were in a panic. Later, I heard 3 shots. The girl who attends a high school adjacent to the Vladislav Ribnikar told state RTS. Casualties have been treated and an investigation into the motives behind the shooting is underway, police said in a statement. Mass shootings are comparatively rare in Serbia, which has very strict gun laws, but the Western Balkans are awash with hundreds of thousands of illegal weapons following wars and arrests in the 90s. Makes sense. Very recent war. Serbian authorities have issued several amnesties for owners to hand in or register their illegal guns. That's really all we have for the story there. I mean, like I said, it's fresh off. 27 minutes ago, it was an article. I don't know where the shooting happened. Shooting might have happened an hour ago, right? Because it doesn't say when it happened. So I'm thinking it just happened as well. So hopefully those injured children get the 6 hospitalized children and the teacher. Maybe they'll be able to identify the reason why this happened. On to your next story.
Sorry, I had my mic off. I don't report on mass shootings just because I don't want to give these idiots publicity for their stupid acts.
It's Serbia, not America.
I know, but either way, it's just wherever it is, it's just somebody wanting attention.
So.
They do it for attention, they get attention, and then somebody else sees it and says, they get attention too. That's what, I'll report on like a week.
Sure.
I know, I don't want to give these guys attention because it's really, I mean, I know it's news, obviously, but God, they don't stop. These fuckers are doing it just for the reason, just for the clicks.
I don't think world. That situation in America
not
is
literally the
clicks.
clicks.
The situation in Serbia is
I wouldn't know, man.
Culture completely.
Yeah, well, somebody thought it was okay to shoot people and probably thinks they're famous now.
I don't know.
I'm just saying.
We'll have to see more on the reporting to see what's actually.
I can't think
on.
like those people, so I don't know. But anyway, I won't. I'll shut up. In Gordon Lightfoot, hit-making singer-songwriter, dies at the age of 84. The rich baritone voice songs like "Sundown," the record of him and Fitzgerald, and "If You Could Read My Mind" made him a top artist in the 1970s. This is from the New York Times. I also have another article from Detroit Free Press. Gordon Lightfoot, the American folk singer whose rich, plaintive baritone and gift melodic songwriting made him one of the most popular recording artists in the 1970s, died on Monday night in Toronto. He was 84. His death at Sunnybrook Hospital was confirmed by his publicist Victoria Lord. She did not specify a cause, but Mr. Lightfoot had had a number of health problems in recent years. Lightfoot, a rising star in Canada in the early 1960s, broke through an international success when his friends and fellow Canadians Ian and Sylvia Tyson recorded 2 of his songs, "Early Morning Rain" and "For Loving Me." When Peter, Paul, and Mary came out with their own versions of these songs, their "For Loving Me" was a top 40 hit, and Marty Robbins reached the top of the country charts with Mr. Lightfoot's "Ribbon of Darkness." Mr. Lightfoot's reputation soared. Overnight, he joined the ranks of songwriters like Bob Dylan, Phil Oakes, and Tom Paxton, all of whom influenced his style. Mr. Dylan, in turn, held Mr. Lightfoot in high regard. He once said, "I can't think of any Gordon Lightfoot song I don't like," he added. "Every time I hear a song of his, it's like I wish it would last forever." Mr. Dylan included a version of "Early Morning Rain" in his 1970 album Self-Portrait, and Bob Dylan does not do a lot of covers. When folk music ebbed in popularity, overwhelmed by British invasion, Mr. Lightfoot began writing ballads and aimed at a broader audience. He scored one hit after another, beginning in the 1970s with his heartfelt "If You Could Read My Mind," inspired by the breakup of his first marriage. That song begins with the memorable lines, "If you could read my mind, love, what a tale my thoughts could tell. Just like an old-time movie about a ghost from a wishing well." Reached number 5 on Billboard Hot 100 and has been covered by Barbra Streisand, Johnny Mathis, Johnny Cash, and numerous others. In quick succession, he recorded "Sundown," his first number 1 hit, "Carefree Highway," "Let Me Slip Away on You," Rainy Day People and The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, which he wrote after reading an article about the sinking of an iron ore carrier in Lake Superior with the loss of 29 crew members. For Canadians, Mr. Lightfoot was a national hero, a homegrown star who stayed home even after he achieved spectacular success in the United States, and who catered to his Canadian fans with cross-country tours. His ballads on Canadian themes like Canadian Railroad Trilogy pulsated with a love for the nation's rivers and forests, which he explored on ambitious canoe trips far into the hinterlands. His personal style, reticent and self-effacing, he avoided interviews and flinched when confronted with praise, also went down well. Sometimes I wonder why I'm being called an icon, because I always really don't think of myself that way, Gordon told the Canadian newspaper The Globe. I'm a professional musician. I work with professional people. It's how we get through life. Gordon Meredith Lightfoot was born on November 17th, 1938 in Orillia, Ontario, to Gordon and Jessie Vic Trill Lightfoot. His father managed a dry cleaning plant. As a boy, he sang in church choir, performed local radio shows, and shined in singing competitions. Man, I did the whole bit. Oratorio work, Kiwanis contests, operettas, barbershops, barbershop quartets, he told Time magazine in 1968. He played piano, drums, and guitar as a teenager, and while still in high school, wrote his first song, a topical number about the hula hoop craze with a catchy phrase line, I guess I'm just a slob and I'm going to lose my job because I'm hula hooping all the time.
Yeah.
His attempts to sell it were unsuccessful. After studying composition and orchestration at Westlake College Music of Los Angeles, he returned to Canada. For a short time, he was a member of Swinging Eight, a singing and dancing troupe seen on the television show Country Hoedown. But soon he became the part of the Toronto folk scene, performing at the same coffee houses and clubs as Ian and Sylvia, Joni Mitchell, Neil Young, and Leonard Cohen. He formed a folk duo, the Two Tones, with fellow Hoedown performer Terry Whelan. The duo recorded a live album in 1962, Two Tones at the Village Center. The next year, while traveling in Europe, he served as the host of the Country and Western show on BBC television. He actually hosted the BBC show in 1963. That's amazing. As a songwriter, Gordon had by then advanced beyond the hula hoop, but not a great deal. His work didn't have any kind of identity, he told Erwin Stampler and Gulin Landon, the authors of the Encyclopedia of Folk, Country, and Western Music, published in 1969. When the Greenwich Village boom brought Mr. Dylan and other dynamic songwriters to the fore, he said, I started to get a point of view, and that's when I started to prove. Just like everybody else, they heard Dylan, and it's like, whoa, you can write about stuff. In 1965, he appeared in New York Folk Festival in Rhode Island and Town Hall in New York. Gordon has a rich, warm voice and his dexterous guitar technique. Robert Shelton wrote in the New York Times, with a little more attention and stage personality, he should become quite popular. A year later, after signing with Albert Grossman, the manager of Bob Dylan, Peter, Paul, and Mary, Mr. Lightfoot recorded his first solo album, Lightfoot, the album which included Early Morning Rain, For Love and Me, Ribbon of Darkness, and I'm Not Saying, a hit in Canada in 1963, was warmly received. Real commercial success came when he switched to Warner Brothers, initially recording the company's Reprise label. By the time I changed over to Warner Brothers around 1970, I was reinventing myself, he told the Georgia newspaper in 2010. Let's say I was probably just advancing away from my folk area, trying to find some direction where I might have some music people might want to listen to. Accompanying himself on an acoustic 12-string guitar and singing in a voice that often trembled with emotion, Mr. Lightfoot gave spare, direct accounts of his material. He sang of loneliness, troubled relationships, the itch to roam, the majesty of Canadian landscape. He was, as the Canadian writer Jack Batten put it, journalist, poet, historian, humorist, short storyteller, and folksy recollector of bygone days. His popularity of recorded artists began to wane in the 1980s, but he maintained a busy touring schedule. In 1999, Rhino Records released Songbook, a 4-disc survey of his career. Mr. Lightfoot is Lived in Toronto, survived by his wife Kim Hayes, 6 children, Fred, Ingrid, Miles, Meredith, Eric, and Galen, and several grandchildren. His first 2 marriages ended in divorce. His older sister Beverly Ayers died in 2017. In 2002, just before he went on stage in Aurelia, Mr. Lightfoot collapsed with an aneurysm in his abdominal aorta ruptured and left him near death. After he spent 2 years recovering, he recorded an album, Harmony. In 2005, resumed his live touring with what was billed as a Better Late Than Never tour. He suffered a minor stroke in 2006 that temporarily affected his ability to play guitar. 10 years later, he performed 80 concerts and told the Canadian press, "At this age, my challenge is to do the best show I can." But last month, he announced he was canceling all of the scheduled concerts for health reasons. And decades ago, oh, that's the sound.
Yeah.
Bagpipes. Yes. And the sound of a bell chiming in Detroit. Decades ago, in the final verse of his most beloved hit, Gordon Lightfoot depicted a solemn scene at Mariners Church in Detroit. The church bell chimed till it rang 29 times for each man on the Edmund Fitzgerald. At 3 p.m. on Tuesday, the bell at Mariners Church rang out again, now chiming 30 times to honor those perished sailors, along with the artist who famously memorialized them in song. With its haunting melody and vivid storytelling, the folk ballad endured as Lightfoot's personal favorite among his songs he composed during his 6-decade career. Having grown up in southern Ontario, he had his own attachment to the majesty and mystery of the Great Lakes. And that spirit rang true in Edmund Fitzgerald. Your story.
Okay. Rest in peace. In more culture news, let's talk about the writer strike. That's right. If anybody was alive during 2007's writer strike, you may remember all the shows went to shit. I even remember that, and I was barely alive. And I remember, why is this so bad to watch? And that's when I discovered things called writer strikes. Another one is coming from the what is it called again? The Writers Guild of America. They are, I believe, all of the late night shows are off air. They're completely going off air in support of the strike. They are poised to lose work as production shut down, but they feel solidarity. This is a struggle, our struggle. As screenwriters across the country go on a strike across the country of the U.S., go on a strike for the first time in 50 years, it won't just be the writers' room that are empty. Without writers, studios must postpone or shut down productions, bringing shows off the air and affecting virtually every profession in TV and film industry, from cinematographers to caterers, to the effects rippling out to a broader economy. This struggle is our struggle, says Corey Hunter, a Los Angeles-based camera operator. We all have been squeezed in the change to streaming. Without jobs, he's planning to get through the next few months by helping a family member deal with real estate work. Darius Peace, an Alabama-based hairstylist who often flies out to work on movie sets, where he specializes in Afro-texture hair, says he has to replace those jobs with more hours at his salon. Paige Simmons, the owner of Dine with Nine, a Los Angeles caterer for production crews, says it's a little scary right now. Multiple clients have already canceled their orders, and unlike during the height of the pandemic, there's no federal aid coming for the writer's strike. While writers are stopping work with the hope of improving their remuneration, the rest of the film industry is simply wanting to hear when they can go back to work. Nevertheless, there's a remarkable amount of solidarity. Peace is cheering on the writers. Right now, it may hurt, but in the long run, it's worth it. Once the writers succeed, everybody else can demand more. The entertainment business is highly profitable. In recent years, the combined profits of giants like Warner Bros., Netflix, Disney, Comcast, and Paramount have reached close to $30 billion a year as their streaming services continue to add subscribers. CEO has soared, with top 12 entertainment bosses receiving about $1 billion in total pay in 2021. Entertainment industry workers say that wealth hasn't been shared with them. It's getting harder to stay afloat. After a long drought of opportunities during the pandemic, workers have been hit by recent layoffs and declining job openings. Studios are cutting positions and experimenting with AI to replace jobs. With the talk of strike looming for months, producers have held back projects in anticipation. So many of us already were kind of in a famine mode, Hunter says. In the past, entertainment unions have not always agreed on strikes, sometimes even openly feuding during them. But this time, there's a remarkable sense of solidarity, at least for now. International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, IATSE, the Actors Union SAG-AFTRA, and the Hollywood Teamsters Union are among the guilds that have expressed support for the strike. While these unions aren't on strike, their members may choose not to cross the picket line, a decision protected by some of their contracts. Teamsters don't just talk about solidarity. We are contractually protected to walk the walk, said in recent guidance set to its members. What's at stake in the future of the entertainment business model, says Handel. The writer's strike in 2007 was, in part, a disagreement over residuals, a type of royalties that writers could earn from new formats like DVDs and online downloads. Streaming is an even bigger shift. We haven't seen such a dramatic and tumultuous period of technology change in the film entertainment industry since after the Second World War, he says, when Americans switched from theaters to watching TV at home. With the strike starting... let's skip all this stuff. Entertainment workers are hopeful that by staying united, they will be able to push the studios for better conditions. In less than 2 months, SAG-AFTRA's contract with AMPTP will need to be renegotiated as well, and many actors see their fates as intertwined with writers. Writers are on the front lines, and we have to make sure we support them. Because it's a domino effect, says the actor Justin Caro, a SAG-AFTRA member. If they're able to fight and get the proper wages and working conditions, then hopefully we will trickle over to the rest of the unions as well. Jen Caro, who is also the co-founder of 3.0, a small animation studio, says he's particularly concerned about AI and hopes that the unions can win some rules targeting it. We've seen a huge uptick in AI in the last several months, and we need to make sure AI doesn't replace the voiceover industry. The writer strikes could even have impacts beyond the United States. Eben Bolter, the UK-based cinematographer who recently worked as a director of photography on HBO's The Last of Us, says, writers in the UK and everywhere are going to look at what's happening in the US. And a win by the Writers Guild would empower UK writers and everywhere to expect better. While he's stressed about where his next paycheck will come from, I still support the strike, because I think that we're doing the right thing. That's what we're asking for is very...
You can take it over to me or whatever.
Alright, time for This Day in History.
Ready?
Yep.
Alright, this day in 1494, Christopher Columbus encountered the island of Jamaica. He didn't discover it, he encountered it. They don't say discovered anymore. Which he named Santiago. Those silly people didn't know where they were living until then.
So that
In 1815, the Congress of Kingdom of Poland was created by the Congress of Vienna as part of its political settlement at the end of the Napoleonic Wars. In 1898, Golda Meir, founder and fourth Prime Minister of Israel, was born in Kiev, Ukraine, then part of the Russian Empire. And this day in 1898, Golda Meir was born. This day in 1903, singer and songwriter and actor Bing Crosby was born in Tacoma, Washington. In 1937, American author Margaret Mitchell won the Pulitzer Prize for her enormously popular novel Gone with the Wind. And this date in 1937, it won an Academy Award for Best Motion Picture 2 years later. 1952, the Kentucky Derby, the most prestigious American horse race, was televised nationally for the first time. And the winning horse was Hill Gale, ridden by jockey Eddie Arcaro. In 1978, users of ARPANET received an ad that was believed the first spam email. Happy birthday, spam emails. In 1996, at the first formal review of the 1980 Geneva Convention on Inhumane Weapons, the signatories agreed to curtail the use of landmines over the next decade. I wonder if that's worked out. 2016, a wildfire forced the evacuation of Fort McMurray, Alberta, the capital of Canada's tar sand industry. In the surrounding area, ultimately, more than 80,000 people fled the blaze, which caused billions of dollars of losses. Tar sands on fire. And this day in England, Margaret Thatcher was elected Prime Minister of Britain. On this day, 1970, I'm terrible accent. Margaret Thatcher, the Conservative Party's elected British Prime Minister, this day in 1979. And happy birthday to Pete Seeger, born this day in 1919. That makes him 104. James Brown was born this day in 1993. He would be 90. Sugar Ray Robinson was born in this day, 1921. Mary Astor, American actress and survivor, I believe a survivor of the Titanic, I'm not sure, was born in 1906. I think her dad died in the Astor. Yeah, there was an Astor, probably completely wrong. And we already covered Bing Crosby. And what is today? Today is, well, yesterday, we missed this, was World Asthma Day. So you should have been celebrating your asthma, I guess, yesterday.
I definitely did celebrate it because I went longboarding and then I wasn't breathing. So. Yay!
Oh, God. Don't do things like that.
Well, it's just natural.
I mean, stop breathing. World Press Freedom Day is today, though. So that's a world press freedom. It's National Lumpy Rug Day.
Lumpy Rug?
Here's one you never heard of. National Two Different Colored Shoes Day. So I'm going to take advantage of that. I'm doing that today.
Blue suede shoes, you also got a red suede shoe.
Just, I don't know, wear a boot and I don't know what they call them. What do they call them? Wear a boot and a croc. You know, something like that. A boot and a croc. National Garden Meditation Day. So today when you meditate in the garden. National Paranormal, sorry?
Oh, that's it. I was just nodding my head in agreement.
National Paranormal Day is also today. And you know what I think about that.
All right.
I don't have to tell you because you can read my mind. And that's today, May 3rd, 2023. All the news, all the comprehensive news. We covered Africa, China, everywhere. Good Lord, there's not a place we did not cover today. Comprehensive news of the world on Before Coffee.
That's been Allison. I hope you have a good Wednesday out there, and we'll see you tomorrow for some more Before Coffee.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.